There are two words which over the centuries immortalized Adam Smith and the Wealth of Nations. They've become shorthand for global economic activities, transforming self-interest into a magical mechanism, an engine for a global economic system.
The invisible hand is a phrase that was introduced by Adam Smith in his great book, The Wealth of Nations, in which he talked about the way in which individuals who intended only to pursue their own interests were led by an invisible hand to promote the public welfare, which was no part of their intention.
60-second adventures in economics. Number 1, the invisible hand. An economy is a tricky thing to control, and governments are always trying to figure out how to do it. Back in 1776, economist Adam Smith shocked everyone by saying that what governments should actually do is just leave people alone to buy and sell freely among themselves. He suggested that if they just leave self-interested traders to compete with one another, markets are guided to positive outcomes as if by an invisible hand. If someone
The invisible hand has long been a staple of any economics course.
or offer something better.
Le paradoxe, c'est que ce seul mot a été dupliqué comme le fondement de l'économie de marché. C'est un succès incroyable. Vous avez des dizaines de milliers de mots dans l'ouvrage de Adam Smith, et c'est la main invisible, cité une seule fois.
Yet Adam Smith never wrote it in this context.
Adam Smith was concerned that if there was free movement of capital and free import of goods, he said England will suffer because British capitalists will invest abroad and they'll import from abroad, and that'll harm the English economy. And Adam Smith then gave an argument. It was not a very good argument, but his argument was that English investors will prefer to invest in England because of what some called a home bias. They'll have a preference for investing close by, and therefore, as if by an invisible hand, England will be saved from the menace of free capital movement and of free import. That's invisible hand. What's that got to do with the Cato Institute or the modern enthusiasm about free capital flow and having U.S. corporations invest in China so they can send stuff back here to sell cheap, exploiting Chinese workers? That's not Adam Smith.
La main invisible est apparue comme la façon de lutter définitivement contre la mainmise de l'État sur la vie économique pour mieux se libérer du féodalisme. Vous voyez, le succès instantané. Et de nos jours, on a remobilisé les années 50 pour essayer de tuer l'état du bien-être, la fiscalité progressive, et dire il faut laisser les agents s'auto-organiser. Mais vous voyez, c'est une réinvention d'une tradition. Cette tradition n'a pas joué un rôle actif tout au long du XIXe siècle. C'est une réinvention moderne à des fins d'action sur la politique économique contemporaine.
Committee will please come to order. Today is our fourth hearing into the ongoing financial crisis.
In 2009, in the wake of the financial collapse, Alan Greenspan, the former head of America's central bank, the Federal Reserve Board, was invited back to Washington as the man who, more than others, promoted deregulation in the name of the invisible hand.
Today in this hearing, Dr. Greenspan, I want to start with you. You have been a staunch advocate for letting markets regulate themselves. And my question for you is simple. Were you wrong?
I found a flaw.
You found a flaw
in the model that defines how the world works, so to speak.
In other words, you found that your view of the world, your ideology was not right. It was not working.
Precisely. No, that's precisely the reason I was shocked, because I've been going for 40 years or more with very considerable evidence that it was working exceptionally well.
Which model was he referring to? Alan Greenspan's intellectual career began with Ayn Rand. He was among her disciples, an enthusiastic believer in her theory of the supremacy of rationality.
It is only since the Industrial Revolution, the birth of a free society, the society of capitalism, that there was a new class of men, which is the free producers of material goods, the businessmen, the industrialists. That is the man who lives by means of reason. That is the man who, in his psychoepistemology, is not guided by his immediate perceptions nor by his emotions, but by logic, by his concepts, by reason. That is the man whom I call the producer.
When Alan Greenspan was nominated years later by then-President Gerald Ford to head his Council of Economic Advisers, Greenspan paid tribute to his old master and invited her to meet the president. Three years before the financial meltdown, Alan Greenspan visited Kirkcaldy, Adam Smith's birthplace, in commemoration of the great thinker. One could hardly imagine, Greenspan said, that today's awesome array of international transactions would produce the relative economic stability that we experience daily if they were not led by some international version of Smith's invisible hand.
In recent decades, a vast risk management and pricing system has evolved, combining the best insights of mathematicians and finance experts. The whole intellectual edifice, however, collapsed in the summer of last year